Well, you found us. We're back again with Orange County's only community conversation. Our resident raconteur and storyteller, Rod Gontos, who runs into the most interesting people in the rad life and shares them all with us. And today, as he's continuing to share his voyage around the Mediterranean on some fancy yacht, we're here sweating away, keeping the story alive here with another great storyteller in the community here, Chef Pascal. Welcome, sir.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
You really are a story. I didn't know who you were bringing in today here, and I'm now so excited. We've been geeking on art and Latin and literature and all sorts of crazy stuff that I never get to talk about here on this business channel. Who did you bring with you? You brought some people from the Hilbert Museum here.
Well, yes, we have Mary Platt, and thank you for coming.
You're very welcome.
Very happy to have Mary with us because she has. I think the show is going to be too short, and
We will need more time.
yeah, we should have a second part. And Mary right now is taking care of a museum in Orange on the Chapman campus. It's called the Hilbert Museum. It's a museum of modern art, can we tell?
California art.
California art.
From
yeah.
about the 1890s up until today.
And I'm going to get
That's modern for a Frenchman.
It is modern, yes.
I'm going to get your guest to move her mic back a little bit from her mouth because she's breathing heavy. She sounds like Darth Vader.
Oh, sorry.
And I haven't been to the museum yet, but I heard so many good things, especially from the other guest who is with you. And so it's going to be my next stop. It's right across the train station in Orange. And you have a beautiful mural outside, and you can't miss it. You know, so it sounds like a fabulous place.
And let's get everybody's name here. So again, the director of the museum is
Mary Platt.
Mary Platt. You're the director of the museum. This is the Hilbert Museum of. Give me the full title here.
Hilbert Museum of California Art at Chapman University.
And you're joined by a real live artist. We don't get
Yes,
many of them here.
yeah, a true artist. You know? And that's why, I'm surprised that I have a pen in his hand. Do you? Oh, here you go.
He's always sketching.
Do you take it to your bed too? Or
Do you take it with you
you
everywhere?
draw all the time?
Sometimes. But
Yeah. If you know him and go somewhere, he's going to look at you and then he's going to sketch
Pretty soon
something.
he's sketching it here.
And he's unbelievable.
Do we identify him, or is he just a mystery guest?
Oh, he's an artist.
He's an artist.
Timothy Clark.
Timothy J.
Clark.
it's good, thank
What's the and the J? He was imperative I put the J in there. Are there others that I?
And I will tell you later that it's kind of sad to not know that we have amazing, fabulous artists here in Orange County, and they are world-class artists. And for me, he impressed me with his work. And he bought a few copies of his work, and but it's fabulous. And he's my local Monet.
Oh, the local Monet. I like
Yeah,
that. That's
so-
a good. Now you, Timothy was telling me you're in what 70 museums? You're in quite a few museums.
No, only 25.
Oh,
museums,
25. I'm
just,
sorry.
I think, but
About 26
there's
more than
maybe
I am.
70
right?
pieces in various museums from coast to coast.
And what kind of medium or art? Or I never know how to describe it. What do you do? How do you describe your work?
Well, if I could really verbalize it accurately, I wouldn't have to paint them.
That's the truth.
Yes.
That's the truth.
But I'm known for my watercolors, strangely enough, but they're huge scale watercolors. They're larger watercolors than almost any.
And I'm going to get you to rotate that mic a little bit back towards me.
And,
There you go. Yeah.
And last year, the Hispanic Society Museum in Washington Heights, New York, featured me in an exhibition called American Travelers, and to be have one of my paintings hung between an El Greco and a Goya was
Pretty famous
well. It
company.
was
Yeah.
either really made me very proud or very humble. I'm not sure which. I'm still thinking that.
We
out.
just had the show with the Orange County Hispanic Chamber. We should have you back on that show to talk about some of the because you're not Hispanic. I don't see.
No, but I didn't know that. I grew up in Santa Ana and figured out how to speak Spanish on the street, and I would ride my bike into the barrios, into all all of the different neighborhoods. It was Santa Ana was like a little world.
Yeah,
and I
still
was
is.
curious and began painting and drawing in Spanish-speaking countries from the age of 18 on. His parents were from Italy, and so my mother taught me Italian as a child. So.
Did you go to school in Rome?
No, I barely went to school, but I went to a great school called Chenard Art Institute, an art center in Otis. I went to all the art schools in LA and studied with. I cherry picked who I wanted to study with.
So, Chef Pascal, how do
Yeah.
you know you're in the culinary arts? You're not in the real painting arts, the visual arts.
I'm sorry to say, I'm an artist.
Are you really?
Even cooking.
That's
For
true.
me, I take cooking as an art.
I think it is. It's edible art.
So I like all the medium. Music, I like classical music as much as I like country music. And
Wow.
anything that sends a cultural message, I like to know more about it. And I think Mary is like that too. Mary wants to know everything. She wants to try everything possible, and drawing, painting. Do you sing too?
In the shower.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try that
But
later.
she can write. She love poetry, history, and everything.
Wow, where'd you jig all this up?
Well, yeah.
You better don't forget she's a magnificent trumpet player too.
Oh God.
No,
it's true. No,
yeah,
why
yeah.
you say no? It's true.
Yeah, no, yes, she is. But
Right.
I read that her father wanted her to play clarinet.
Yes.
But because she liked to be loud, and clarinet was not loud enough.
Not
and
loud
so
enough.
she
She wanted
said,
to
"I'm going to
blare."
play trumpet." You know what else she play? Bagpipe.
Yeah.
Really?
Another
A
very
bag
soft
pipe?
instrument.
Bagpipe.
Oh, my
She
God.
was fascinated by bagpipe.
Yes.
And she even created a band with bagpipe. She was
I,
part of a band.
I played in the Nicholson Pipes and Drums in Westminster, California for a
Amazing.
while.
Oh, good.
Do you still have a bagpipe?
I still have my bagpipe. I put it away about probably 10 years ago because
Yeah.
you really need to be in a band
Yeah.
to keep it up.
What,
And,
because you want to keep your neighbors too?
Yeah,
Keep your
and keep your
neighbors
neighbors up as well.
I'm
But-
Irish. I love the bagpipe. In fact, I love the Irish bagpipe that's under the arm.
Oh yes, the Ullin pipe.
The
Yeah.
Olin pipe. And
Yeah.
because I've seen the, what's the famous band in Ireland?
Chieftains.
The Chieftains. I've seen several times, yes.
Yeah,
That's
they're so
fantastic.
good. Yeah, that's probably my next thing I want to take up is the Ullin pipe.
All right, so I don't even know where to start. We're talking high culture in a county that has not associated itself with fine dining or with high arts here.
Well, that's why we have the show.
That's why we have the show,
we want
because
to
it
share
really
that.
has grown. Orange County, we had the Orange County Museum of Art in here,
Yeah.
and I find that opened my eyes. There are other museums out here that many people aren't even totally aware of. Yours is one of them, and I say that because I didn't know it existed. I went to I love going to the train station for lunch, my breakfast. My little grandsons love watching the trains come in and out, and every time we did that, we saw there's some museum over there. And I thought, finally, one day we just walked over, and isn't it like free to get in?
It's free.
It's
Yes.
free.
Yeah, you can just walk in. We recommend reserving online just, in case there's a crowd. But anytime you can walk in. We're open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 5.
And tell me about the guy who funded this thing and started it with his collection, Hilbert.
Yeah, so Mark Hilbert is a remarkable guy. So he and his wife Janet, they're from Newport Beach, and they had been collecting California art for about 30 years.
Seriously collecting it, yeah.
Well, yeah, they started, they bought one watercolor, and they loved it so much that they went back the next day and bought another one. And it just is like, they're like potato chips. You can't just
stop.
have one. So what they did was they
I
focused.
don't know if the artists like that. Your paintings are like potato chips.
We're not we're more durable than that.
So Mark and Janet focused on a genre called California scene painting, which is paintings of everyday life in California.
Is that that's not just what they call plain art or whatever, which is landscapes?
Yeah, so plein air or landscape painting started in California relatively early. It's probably flourished most in the early years of the 20th century.
Right. That's what
And-
Laguna Beach was so known for, kind of, it seems like.
Very much so, yeah. And so those are pure landscapes without people. But around the time that the Great Depression started, artists started depicting everyday life, and it was kind of part of the American regionalist movement that in the Midwest showed itself through Thomas Hart Benton and Grant
Yeah,
Wood.
right.
But in California, it expressed itself differently. The
Grant was the
Midwestern.
guy that did he did the real primitive kind of paintings.
He did well, the
Farmers.
farmer and his sister with the pitchfork,
Yeah,
American
right.
Gothic.
Right.
And Thomas Hart Benton, the stalwart farmers working in the fields, the rolling fields. But in California, it was different. People were coming during the Dust Bowl, were coming to California as a place of hope. And
The grapes of
Yeah,
wrath,
so
like the movie,
they
yeah.
discover the land.
yeah,
And then they look around. That's where some artists came, and they wanted to paint. And they bought a cheap easel, and they make it themselves, and then they plant it somewhere they like to remember. And it's like taking a picture. You go to a place you want to paint, and this
Right.
is why we call it plein air, because you plant your easel outdoor,
Yeah.
and then you want to paint it. Yeah.
But there was something else going on in California, though, that made it completely different from anywhere else in the world, and that was the movie industry.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the movies were, even during the Great Depression, were looking to hire artists, and they hired hundreds of artists from all over the world
To do scene sets?
to
or-
do set painting, set design, the great
Storyboard.
movie posters, of course,
Yeah.
storyboarding. And then there were guys like Walt Disney that were the pioneers of animation.
Right.
And, Disney had a whole studio that was hungry for artists. And so he was hiring hundreds of artists, including a lot of young women that he hired
Yeah.
as ink and painters.
If Disney was still with us, I think Tim would get a job there.
Yeah,
No, I'm
you-
not kidding.
Yeah.
He can sketch or
Instantly.
draw something in a minute. And
We're going to put him to the test. We're going to
oh, totally. I've seen him doing that. It's unbelievable. And yes, you.
Can I tell you one lost art? Just since you just brought it up, we're down one rabbit hole for a second. I was in the entertainment industry. I was an entertainment publicist for Johnny Mathis and Anthony Quinn, a whole bunch of people. So back in the days, this is the 80s and 90s, and I got to go on all the movie lots. And the one that always fascinates me still is the Fox studio lot. And the street that they had, I'm assuming it's still there, they built it for Hello Dolly. And it was too expensive to tear down, so they kept it, and they've used it in every TV show and movie. And it's like a New York street. It's their New York street. Now, why do I say this? Because when you stand there in real life, it's all an illusion. This isn't 3D. It's painted in a way that the windows, I forgot what they call that, but they paint the windows and the depth, and what do they call it? And in a way that it looks, what photographs as if it's 3D and has dimension to it. But when you're standing there, it's just a flat piece of cardboard. or
Well, I
whatever.
can tell you, Tim's is not 3D, but it does look like 3D. One is a
It's lifelike,
favorite thing. I think, if I'm right, he loved to paint inside of a church or cathedral. And for me, it's like a 3D because you can see the ceiling. It's not just focusing on one part. You can see the ceiling on your environment, and actually it presents the back of the church with the lights, something like that. But and it doesn't miss any part of the light. This is why I compare him a bit with Claude Monet. That really he captured the lights, the shadows, and at wherever lights comes in at different times.
But I'm
of
going to
the
show
day.
my ignorance about art. Monet was more of an impressionist, so he didn't try to be as realistic as he was an
yes,
impressionist.
but there's a mix there because he even put some cubic art in his painting.
I never understood. All right, hold up one of your pieces there, Tim. Let's just
Well,
see if we can.
nothing to show on this related to this part. I can look for something in a second.
He
But-
shows
but
me. He
go
shows
back-
me one time. He start drawing triangle on a piece of nice paper.
Right.
And from that triangle, he just add curve to it, and within 3-4 minutes, then you have a portrait with
wow.
3 triangles. Start with 3 triangles.
Here's one of my church interiors. I don't know if that's showing or
A
not.
little bit. It's hard to
Right.
see it this
It
far away.
would be hard to see, but there was an exhibition of my work in Chicago in a museum in Chicago about 10 years ago called Sacred Spaces. And the whole exhibition was just church interiors. But then, there was an exhibition at Howard University in Washington, D.C.,
Right.
which were all portraits of friends of mine who happen to be African American. And so,
And who is that?
This is Dr. Michael White, who you just met.
Yeah.
And he and I did a lecture about.
What you will
the
love
pro-
him is perfect. One of the best clarinetists in the country.
Oh yeah.
No, right. Well, as far as jazz goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I'm a big jazz fan, so I'm always
and
curious.
the Smithsonian came in into Howard University and bought this piece for
Wow.
their permanent collection, and so my work isn't just all pigeonholed into one thing or two things. I can do portraits and
So I have two questions that I'm
Yes.
curious to ask here of everybody here. One is, how in the world does a kid from Santa Ana attain that kind of prominence and recognition and get seen? You're not in what is considered to be, I don't know, where is the art community flourishing? This is not where they're discovering new artists, I wouldn't think, in Orange County.
And I like your question because I do believe that if we bring people who are making a living with art or history or something like that, maybe they give idea to a young person that say, hey, I don't have to be a doctor or an engineer.
I can be an artist.
I can be an artist.
And but how do I get there? I'm a kid in Santa Ana.
You know,
I'm a kid in
it's-
suburbia. I'm a kid in
if-
middle of nowhere. Yeah.
If you have a little seed that's planted, like we maybe plant some seed today, it will grow in you, and then one day you just end up, oh, let's see if I can
So
grow
let's
this.
see here. How did your seed grow? Where did it start, and how did it grow?
mine.
Yeah.
Is he going to answer my question again?
Yeah, I think he is. I think he is.
I knew I loved to draw by the time I was a kid, and so it was a passion I respected. I didn't even have peace and quiet in my house. I would get up at 1, 2 in the morning and go down to a far corner and draw for 2 hours
Wow.
and then go back to bed. And so I learned how to focus. And I also knocked on a man's. There was somebody told me that this one person was incredibly well trained, an art school graduate, not a college grad. This guy had been great training. And I knocked on his door and I said, I want you to help me. I was 15, 16. And he was generally a mean person, but he was kind to me. And he said, do 20 drawings like this,
Yeah.
a half hour each, and bring them back. You don't tell a 15-year-old kid to do that. I came back the next week with the drawing, and then he took a pencil and he marked them all up. And I,
Yeah.
don't hurt my. But you kind of, and then he just helped me and guided me and said, here are the schools. Mary was talking about the film industry.
Yeah.
Because of the film industry, they needed storyboard artists who could draw off the top of their head.
Clearly.
They needed people who could do backgrounds. And so,
Fast.
Art Center, Chenard, Otis, California had a number of art schools to train these people.
Right.
And then they also always had the people who trained it were great fine artists. And so there were a number of incredibly great instructors. you could
Even
get
in
that.
Orange County, though? 'Cause
No,
Orange
that
County's-
was in L.A. That was
Yeah.
all in. But in those days, people think of Santa Ana or whatever. That all runs together. But the difference between Santa Ana and Costa Mesa, there were cornfields and bean fields
Yeah.
between the two. They all had a distinctive quality.
We might as well have been in Kansas.
I might as well have could have been. Kansas would have been closer.
You,
It was just nothing there.
you
And,
actually both teach too. At one point, you were teaching drawing and painting in classes, no?
sometimes, yeah. I've lectured for Yale Graduate School. I've been a lecturer.
So how,
And
again,
Mary
I-
too, huh? You've been
I teach
teaching
a class at Chapman in the College of Educational Studies,
still now.
which is yes, is going to continue in 2025. And it's basically art history for education majors, but it teaches them creativity and how to pass creativity along to their students.
And another chord in your arc, I would say, you also are good in communication and public relations.
Yeah, I sort of came up through the public relations world after college. and I never studied it in college. I started doing it voluntarily for first the marching band at Michigan State, where I was a student.
Michigan State. I went to the University of Michigan.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure you've recovered well.
Ouch.
No, that's okay. We love. I mean, we're rivals, but you know, we're also friends. The two bands are friends, and
Meow.
yeah.
Wow, yeah.
So you know, so I started doing that voluntarily, and then it grew into a career. I came out here in '91 to work for what was then the Orange County Performing Arts Center.
Sure.
Was there for quite a few years doing PR, and then at the Getty Center for a couple of years,
Wow.
and then at Chapman I was first the editor of the alumni magazine, and then became PR communications news director for.
Probably Jim Doty loved you.
Oh, I love Jim too. He's the greatest. Yeah, we.
The face of Chapman University.
He was the face, is the face, kind of, you know, still everyone knows him.
Even like my food.
And
Oh, wow.
he loves your food.
So I got to go back. Tim just kind of gave us one thing. He's 15. He's in Santa Ana. He finds somebody who had been to art school, and they start mentoring him. I'm missing the big jump. A million kids like that who have some talent in high school, show a passion for it. They're not in the. You rattled off all these museums that you're in. They're not. Their pieces aren't being purchased by the Smithsonian. Was there a breakthrough, or was it just a 20-year struggle to get noticed?
No, I was lucky right off the bat. Well, one thing is that you know, people say, "Oh, you can go to Santa Ana College, just right down the street." This mentor said, "No, you're not." And so I wound up at Art Center, and I didn't know this. I mean, I was the youngest kid in the class. Most people had a BA, and most of them had a fair amount of skill, and I drew very, very well. I mean, when you're there, were in Chenard, where I transferred to, were more people more closer to what I was, but these both schools. This was the kid who stood out, not in that one class a day in art in high school or
Right.
whatever. They stood out amongst everybody the year ahead and the year behind.
And so
everybody knew.
Do you
and
just
so
audition to get into those?
You had to have a portfolio to get into
And
either
I
school.
may,
I don't know if
I
you
may
still
add
do.
something too, because you know it's not easy to make a living on just
No,
art, especially if
impossible.
you're not known enough.
Exactly.
But he has a great team. His wife, she take care of the business side.
She's
And
got a
really
manager.
Keep him on track and take care of the business until he can be free doing his craft. No, I think we need to say that.
Yeah, it's true. This woman deserves a halo right now, and
Good.
Well,
I
isn't it
think she
true
has
that
one.
Vincent van Gogh, who never sold a painting in his life, maybe one or something here, it was his brother that kept his art alive.
yeah, but his brother's wife is the one who promoted it.
Is it? Okay,
at the
so
end.
same story, yeah.
But,
And
my wife knew there was already a book about me by the time I met her. But she said, "Okay, we're going to clean this up and take it."
There you
take
go.
it on the
Yeah,
road
yeah.
here.
She. But they're.
It's different than Claude Monet because Claude Monet's wife never saw him. He was always hopping around
Was he?
in a little village in Normandy or
I
somewhere.
know so little about art.
And-
All right, well, my question is then, let's go to the other part of it. Is Orange County still a cultural wasteland? That was the question we put to Chef Pascal. Do they have fine cuisine taste? Do they have a taste for it? Do they have a recognition of it? Do the same thing? Do people recognize art and respond to it? Or are we still just a bunch of suburban
I think it's a work.
snobs or whatever?
It's in a process.
Yeah.
I think we are now getting more conscientious and knowledgeable that there is art in Orange County.
Right.
With these
Because it
new
seems to be
museum,
growing.
like
yeah.
the Milton Museum, they make you discover the origin of Orange County and
Right.
things like that. And Irving Smith Irving Museum as well. They bring you all the past, and then
All right, that's Chef's perspective. Mary, what do you think? Is
Well,
art still a struggle in Orange County, or
I
is
mean,
it
I
there's
have-
an appetite for it?
I have to counter this notion that we're a cultural wasteland
Right.
here. I mean, it's ridiculous.
That's been
First
the
of
notion
all,
for 20 years. yeah.
30 or more. I
Yeah.
mean, when I got here in '91 and worked for ACMA, OC Performing Arts Center.
Right.
That we heard that, and it was ridiculous then because we had the best dance series on the West Coast at OCPAC, and we had, classical music, world class coming through here, sold out audiences. I mean, I remember, working the press desk with press kits stacked up in the LA Times and Register, reviewing these things. I mean, it's kind of backslid because of, the press kind of being dismantled.
No place to tell these stories, yeah.
And so, we're all looking for ways to tell our stories. Sometimes we have to be our own press.
You're at it?
We still cut off a little bit from Los Angeles. Los Angeles always take over.
Well,
And-
they have that notion, of the orange curtain that,
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
and when I talk to people up in LA and they're like, "Oh, you're in Orange County. Oh, I have to go all the way down
Yeah,
there." And
but-
I'm like, "Please,
But
it's
thank
40
you to
minutes."
thank you to the Segerstrom family that actually draw people into Orange County, either for shopping or for art, for
Yep.
shows, and they really help the growth of art.
I'll go one step further.
Fantastically,
We
yes.
haven't just found a way to bring people in. We're the sixth
Yeah.
biggest county in America now here. So we have our own identity. We're not LA anymore. We're not just an extension of big distant suburbia. We're not San Diego, certainly. We're something. We're not sure what we are, but we're something different.
Thank you. Yes.
And this is why I brought Tim here, and Mary as well, but Tim need to be more known and really recognized. He's an artist.
In his own
He's
community
not going
here,
to,
yeah,
he's not going to go on the street and say, hey, this is what we do here. And but there's something special between the two of them.
So I didn't know there were any nationally known artists from Orange County. Are there others?
Why
Is
is
this-
it? Why? And I
Tim,
just
I'll
want
let
to talk about
You're
Tim
answering
today.
Tim's every question here. I asked Tim a question and you answered it.
I don't
like
need
this.
to pass my spokesman.
Your PR
Yeah,
person.
I
here.
have. But no, I wanted to finish one thing I was
Okay.
going to say. The big connection between the two of them is that Tim is going to have an exhibit at Mary's
That's
Museum.
what I was assuming. We were getting up
Yes.
to that
Right.
here, right?
Yeah.
When is that coming, and when can we see that? Is it now or is it?
That's going to be in November.
Okay.
We're opening, and Tim, you want to tell a
Give
little
a
bit
plug
about it?
here. Yeah.
Well, the first thing, there's so many questions on the air but one of them is artists tend to quietly work. It's really nice to have colleagues who have similar concerns, and most of the friends that I have at that level are in the East Coast. I know them in New York. I've
Okay.
spent a lot of time and lived in New York.
That's where we picture
for a
the
fair
arts to
amount.
be. Yeah.
But Orange County, one of the most important minimalist abstract painters was a man named John McLaughlin, who lived in Dana Point, and we're talking 50, 60 years ago, right after 70 years ago, and so Orange County is beautiful and it's peaceful and it has a sense of nature, and if you're tuned in and committed, it's a great place to work.
Well,
And
let's
that's what's worked for me.
And let's not forget, that Orange County historically, the home of the great Laguna Beach
Right.
Arts Colony, which
Right.
was extremely influential. I mean, it's one of probably the only thing to even equally would be Carmel.
Or Coscos, New
Yeah.
York, Coscob, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
There were little art colonies, but there
Where
were some
was
major
George
artists.
O'Keeffe was from where in New Mexico or something. She pioneered all that. Everybody go out and draw what she was drawing.
Yeah, but
and-
George O'Keeffe went to New Mexico to have peace and quiet. She got
Yeah.
out of New York.
She's
and
from
so
New York.
She was. I mean, she was. Her
the East
husband
Coast,
was
at least.
was a major dealer. I taught in the same classroom where she learned how to paint
Really?
in New York, and she was incredibly well trained, but a lot of art. Picasso left Paris and went out to the countryside so nobody would bother him.
Right.
And that's one of the things I like is I like the peace and quiet. But this connection, this portrait of Michael White, he and I are good friends, and we talk about the crossover and how music and painting crosses over. If Pascal and I talk about the same things, about
food
how
and-
you accent something, in order to accent, you have to keep everything else quiet, and then you throw the accent, and the accent has to be the right place, and it has to
Can't
be the right
overwhelm
shape.
it, yeah.
And it's no different than when he always comes over and says, "Oh, Tim, I see you made this salmon dip. Let me," and he says, "Oh, it needs an accent." And I think,
Well, actually, Tim is like this. He like to also add some accent to a painting with a little sense of humor. I was looking at this bicycle. I don't think that's the one, but
don't show the bicycle.
you will see there's a bicycle he paint, and then there's a brush behind it.
A broom?
Broom.
right.
Now, okay, so you question yourself
Why?
what the broom is doing behind the bicycle.
Oh, that's a terrible story. You really? No, I mean,
You get
did you
people's
hear?
attention.
Do you want me to tell that story?
Sure.
Can you edit this? If you don't
Sure,
mind?
sure.
Yeah,
Do you
well,
have the
you know, but
painting?
no, I was. I wish I had the painting
Oh.
with me, but it was from Mexico City, and that was in the exhibition in New York, and my paintings of Hispanic culture, and the guy said siempre a la mañana manejo esta bicicleta al trabajo. Every morning I ride this bicycle to work.
Right.
And he said, "La madre de mi esposa, my wife's mother drives the broom."
Now, which?
Hilarious.
Una bruja. See,
Yeah.
see.
But he has a great sense of humor.
I don't know
And,
about that, but
But I guess what I'm trying to get at is Orange County opening to this. As we grow into our own identity, we're hungry to find the arts. We've built the performing arts centers. The new art museum has gone up. We seem to be coming into our own in spaces and places. That's this station trying to tell stories of Orange County. That's what this whole show's about. So what is the story of Orange County these days? Is it still becoming, or has it become something?
It's always becoming, I think. I think, especially in terms of museums, we just saw the Orange County Museum of Art open its beautiful new space. And then we opened our beautiful new space in Orange.
Yeah.
And then, UCI is working towards, a new home for its IMCA Art Museum.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We're here on campus. I didn't even
Right.
know that.
Oh, yeah.
and that museum is interesting because Joan Irvine Smith, with the guidance of John Stern, great curator, put together a collection of plein air painting and how it developed, and looking at the missions and whatnot. Incredibly, the best of that. At the same time, Gerald Buck was actually started collecting the same kind of work, and then he moved into more avant-garde work, dealing with Diebenkorn and Wayne Thiebaud and more, even Bob Irwin, and collected me, and he put together that's other half. So that the two faces of that core collection are really strong. It's a great art museum.
We had a guy in here, I think his name's Moskowitz. He has an art gallery down in, I believe it's like Laguna Niguel.
Mo?
I'm trying to think of his name. Anyway, he has a couple of these, and he opened his third gallery here for fine art, for whatever you call today's modern paintings. And his other galleries were in like Palm Beach and New York and Dallas and, big major metropolitan markets where you'd think there'd be a big support for art. And I said, why here? He said, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been coming for a long time.
There's a big population here, and even quietly, they've supported my art. This community has supported my art for my whole career. They've been buying paintings, and I keep always. People say, "Oh, you just got discovered." I've been saying that for 40 years.
Every day I get
And
discovered.
you keep getting, but
Keeps
the
you young.
we look at the New York art world and they say, "Oh, they have theater and they have drama and
Yeah,
they have
exactly.
this and
They have what
galleries."
we aspire
but
to, right.
But the bulk of those attendants, are there New Yorkers that go? By all means, and I know New Yorkers. And this morning my wife gave me my membership card to the Metropolitan Museum
There you
for
go.
the next. And we've been long-term members of MoMA and the Met.
Right.
But I would say more than half of their daily attendance, and including theater, is from people from out of
Out of
people
town. Out of
traveling.
towners.
Yeah.
And so
I gotta
their
tell you-
destinations.
I got to tell you my one story here. This will say everything I know about art. So I went to the University of Michigan, magna cum laude, all this great stuff. Did everything I could, studied everything I could. The one thing I never understood though was art. I ran the college radio station. I played music. All these things I could appreciate. Food, I understood. Art, to me, I have a 2-year-old's understanding of art.
But you speak Latin, don't you?
I speak Latin.
Go ahead, tell us.
Arma verum quaecano, qui primus. I sing of arms and the man. The opening lines of the Aeneid. Anyway,
Right.
so I thought of myself as a liberal education, and my big gaping hole, like so many suburbanites, like so many people I know in Middle America, I know nothing about art. So I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art one year, many years ago, dating a girl who had a master's in art history. She said, let's go. And she's walking around, she's trying to explain this to me. I felt so stupid. I don't even know what I'm looking at. I don't know what perspective is, or I don't even know how to evaluate this stuff. And she'd say, what do you think? I'd say, that's nice. And she'd say, I wish I had your eye for art. I said, what? She said, because you just look at it and react to it. I look at it and take it apart. I have to analyze it. She said, you just look at it and go, that's pretty. I like that one. And I thought, I don't know, is that all it takes? I asked the same question of the director of the Orange County Museum of Art. Is that all it takes? Or are we intimidated, like going to a wine tasting? I don't know what I'm doing. I feel stupid, so I'm not going to go explore any of this stuff.
Well, I think
It's practice.
Yeah,
You know,
it-
it's
it-
more you look, more you discover, and quick come to your head. you
Right.
know.
as a museum director, I hear this a lot from people that are always saying, "Oh, I've always been intimidated by art."
Right.
Museums are here. We're not here to intimidate you guys. We're here to welcome you in.
Right.
And you can do it even by something so simple as when Mark and Jan Hilbert were learning how to be art connoisseurs.
Right.
They knew nothing. They just knew that they liked the watercolors that they bought.
And they had the money to
And-
buy this stuff. And right.
And they asked people, how do I learn more about art? The answer is go to as many museums as you can, look at all the art, see what you like, and why, and then, assess why you like it. And so they would play a game every time they would go, they've got the money to go to Europe multiple times, see all the great museums. Every time they left a museum on the way back, they would ask each other, what was your favorite piece?
Yeah.
And why? And they would explain to each other why they liked that piece.
In their own terms, not
their
in
own
technical
terms.
terms. Right.
And with something as simple as that, you can, I like to think of the Hilbert Museum as kind of the entry drug for art, for people that don't understand art, because we have what we call representational art. It's all figurative. It's all subject matter. You can see and understand what is in
And
it.
as you move from one room to the other, the artist's style changes. So one's very realistic, one is very impressionistic, one is like a comic book, one is something out there. What I was struck with is how accessible it was. I wasn't looking at Monet or Goya or all these things you're rattling off here that I couldn't tell you what they painted, and if I looked at it, I go, that's nice. I don't
Do you
even
have
know.
a guided tour?
There were people there.
We were giving guided tours. Now we're giving the docents are planted in the galleries now, and you can kind of walk from gallery to gallery, and they'll explain
Okay.
the art to you.
That's important because you don't want just to go in and then you need to know more. I
Well,
think.
and we're so big now that I was leading tours and Mark Hilbert was leading tours, and we were literally losing our voices at the end of the tour. So we're planning our very good
you mean
docents.
you don't have your bagpipe? To,
Yeah, I should.
Bagpipe is
Yeah,
what I
to
think.
lead
Great
everyone.
So what do you think, Chef? I mean, I had the same impression when I take people to a fine restaurant like the ones you've worked in, or you take people to a wine tasting, or you take people to the symphony, or you take people and they say, I feel so stupid. I'm intimidated. I don't even know what this is,
Well-
and I feel dumb. And I'm sorry, there is a certain atmosphere that some of these places portray like, well, we know and you don't, so you're excluded. And you don't feel welcome, as opposed to going into a restaurant and saying, "What's this?"
Well,
or
I
art and saying,
think
"What's this?"
this is why it makes a difference between a successful museum or a successful restaurant.
Right.
Is that the server is going to guide you for the menu, and then somebody is going to help you to find the right one
To discover
match.
something.
So it's same thing in
Wow.
a museum. Say, hey, okay, what you are looking at is this, and what if you go to the next room, and then it's going to be totally different. So let me tell you why it's different.
Right.
And then you keep what you want to keep in your head, and you like what you want to like.
And you could say, "I don't like that."
Yeah.
Well,
That's
that's
okay.
fine. You move
Yeah.
on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the great thing about what's going on in Orange County right now with museums and all the, the new museums that have just opened with, revamped spaces, the ones that are yet to come, is that, people always ask me, do you feel intimidated by all these other museums? Are you in competition? We are
Right.
not in competition with each other. We are partners. And, a rising tide, as what's happening in Orange County right now,
Right.
is lifting all the museums up. And we are becoming a destination for art lovers to come.
Do you feel the impulse to be more than just pictures on the wall? When they had the Orange County Museum of Art here, the
Yes.
director whose name escapes me now here, but
Heidi.
Heidi, yeah, real sharp lady.
Uh-huh.
And she said, we want to be the art museum for not just people who love art and know art, but for everybody who doesn't know art, has never seen art. So we try and make it accessible, fun, loud, silly. You don't have to be like you're in a library. Oh, be quiet. Shush. Don't touch that. Don't get too close. Don't do anything. Whereas today's world wants to be interactive and experience.
And that's
it.
the beauty about Patty's Museum. That's on the campus.
Yeah.
So you bring students
Kids
in.
and stuff.
Yeah, we
they're
bring-
very curious, and it's like, okay, let's go to the museum. Oh, there's a new exhibit at the museum. Let's go. Let's do a
I
look.
found it very accessible. Once I walked in the door, which was my intimidation factor, I was there with my grandkids.
Good.
5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and my wife, who like me knows nothing about art. If you went to our house, it all looks like art from Home Depot here or something.
I'm sure they remember there because you took them to eat a good fried chicken next door.
Well, and they love the trains, and they love that whole image of that little restaurant there. So we there for one purpose, and I walked across, and they're just like, because they're kids, they don't know to be intimidated. They're just, oh, that's cool. Look at that one. That's weird. That's wild. Look at this one over here.
Well, I mean, we do silly things, like we have a game called I Spy where the kids, there's a list of things that they can find in the paintings. And that keeps them occupied, like find the American flag, find the
Right.
red barn, find the spotted horse, and they run through. We've got 2 buildings now, so they go through both buildings, looking. And
Actually, to tell you that team sometimes is going to make you look at the paintings, say, how many faces do you see on that painting? You have a paint.
And do
paint. It has
you see
different-
the broom behind? Do you see the witch's broom
Oh,
behind?
the broom is obvious, but
Well, with all
there's a
that-
painting of a table. It's going to say, there's a portrait there. There's a
Yeah.
portrait
Right,
there.
but I'll structure those parts very differently. One side will be a light face against a dark background. The other side will reverse, like a silhouette. And the other part will have both of them combined. And one of the nice things about having had some noted curators and art historians write about me, people stop and they look. And then when they look, they taste it and they savor it. If someone goes to one of Pascal's restaurants,
Right.
and they say, "Oh, this is a special meal," and somebody says, "How do you know?" Because it's costing me a fortune. and they say,
And look at
"Slow
the
down,
atmosphere, it's very
slow
quiet."
down and
Yeah.
taste it." Oh my goodness, they've stopped to savor it.
Yeah.
Some of it is Pascal's mastery in the kitchen, but the other part is training people to use their own taste, but
Don't just
use
swallow
their
it.
eyes
Yeah.
and look at that.
Don't
and-
just
and-
chug it down. Yeah.
and, you know,
To
it's-
add to this, it's like your art. Everything has a reason to be on this canvas. Same on my plates. There's not something on the plate. It's not.
He just
there.
threw it in there and,
no, it's just because he has to go with something else. Everything is all together, and that's the whole experience.
Right, but if you gave a lot of people a masterful meal, a masterpiece, and say, "Eat, hurry, you got to catch the train,"
Right.
they wouldn't taste it.
If they ate it like
but
they eat fast food, yeah.
everything slows you down. And if you eat a meal with Pascal for a couple of days, you go to In-N-Out, you're going to savor it because
Yeah.
he's trained you how to look at it, and you look at the design on a cereal box.
How do you teach people? And again, I'm not trying to pick on Orange County, but Orange County, I've lived here for 30 years now. It's doesn't have the same developed, sophisticated experience of people who grew up eating fine food, going to restaurants, going to symphonies, all the stuff here. Some, but most of it, and money doesn't mean everything. Just because you got money doesn't mean that you have taste.
You need to have a budget, if you want to collect. But going to museum doesn't cost
Nothing.
It's free.
Nothing. And then it's a free experience. It's a free learning, and
Yeah.
that's something you never forget.
The one time I went to Europe, though, the average waiter, the average guy sweeping the streets, has an understanding and appreciation of art
That's
or
true.
music.
No.
I don't know that the people have the same. If I walked out through up and down my suburban neighborhood and asked people about art, or
I'm
music,
not sure
or
if it's
food,
an appreciation. Because it's something that's part of your life.
that's part of their life. Yeah.
Architecture, all architecture in Europe, and art, and because sometimes we don't even go to museum.
Right.
You know, I've been to the Louvre only once, and I only barely a full day because I could not stand spending more hours in that giant museum.
Right.
So much to look at, you know.
Right.
And so I say, okay, maybe later when I get old and
So
retired.
what do you all say to people who go around the table here? We'll start with Timothy here. People who've never seen your art, never experienced it. Where do you have them start? Just come in and look at it. Just try it.
Just go in and look, and you know, when you see my work large scale, there's a subtle balance between drawing and painting, and you can get people to savor that. Most people either draw or they paint.
And
but
explain that to me, because I don't know the difference.
Well, I walk on this feather edge between the two, and
drawing being what, more realistic, and
No.
painting being more impressionistic.
Somebody called just before we came on, a critic from the Wall Street Journal, who's a good friend. He says that there are modern elements in there, and that's one of the reasons why I've been lucky. I get to work as a figurative painter, but they say that people just sense the modernity in it, and so I mean there'll be people who love to throw shade at that, but those are
So
people
break
who
that
don't
down
have a
again.
career.
I'm trying to understand what that means. I hear what you're saying. I know you're speaking English here, but so what is a modernity?
Well, if you look at this portrait of my friend James Little,
Okay.
who's a minimalist painter, some of this is left for you to fill in the blanks.
Right.
There's unsaid parts on it.
Right.
There's simple shapes, and it paints him and honors him. The Times said he was the standout person at the Whitney Biennial a couple years ago.
Right.
And the Smithsonian bought this piece too. And but
beautiful.
just so there are parts on it. Nobody would have painted that 100 years ago. The language didn't exist for that.
So they would have been what, more literal or more?
They would have filled in.
Filled
They
it,
would have.
yeah.
They would have completed everything instead of letting you complete it. They would have completed the whole thing and said, "Use this fork."
Yeah, he's letting the paper sing behind this.
Thank
It's
you.
part of it.
Yeah, but it's
Because too much of this is my critique as a non-artist appreciator. Just somebody, oh, that's pretty, that's nice. I go to some museums, and the art is so abstract, so strange to me. It's a table with a peach on it and some strange light and some odd thing here, and I go, what is that? Is everything art then? Is
you don't like peaches?
tables? I hate tables.
There are class dividers in the art world. If you want to know Picasso, someone has to explain it to you.
Right.
And if it hasn't been explained to you, you're not in the club. And it's
Exactly.
hard.
Yeah.
But if somebody does explain it to you, you suddenly have a great time
then-
looking at Picasso.
And then suddenly you look at the Vasarely, and it's totally created. It's like an architect on painting on a canvas. You know?
Yeah, I think since in what we call modern art goes back more than a century
Oh, yeah.
now. But
And it seems to be
some
an
of it not-
explosion.
Not that modern anymore.
It
but-
isn't one thing; it's anything. There used to be a genre, and then there's now anything goes, from totally bizarre, abstract a scene in a museum, and it's the same as the picture on the wall. I don't know.
It
And
depends.
So,
it's-
Tim, do you call this modern art?
I don't know. I did it, so it's not. It's my.
It's
but
modern
that's
time.
De
that's
facto.
the part of the problem with that thing was he wore that necktie that was just like a gift from hell. and I said, "Why'd you do that?" He says, "Only a friend would make you paint that necktie. It's just got swirls." And I said, and I have to put it next to a clarinet, which is a complex instrument. So
Now I get something.
But here's
Okay,
Go
go ahead.
I'm just trying to delve into this.
if
here.
I can bring something into it,
We got about 5
The-
minutes left there.
the Hilbert Museum, I think the thread that ties everything in the Hilbert Museum together
Right.
is storytelling.
That's what I'm looking
And
for.
storytelling is,
Universal.
probably the oldest human art. Maybe
That's
along with music and
That's
dance.
what we try and
but-
do here. Tell
Exactly,
stories. We're
see?
telling stories.
And so, these what you see at the Hilbert Museum are paintings that tell stories of us, of Californians, of the coming of the movie industry. We always have our Disney galleries with original Disney art, that tells that story of, the important
Right.
studios. And then, those artists in their free time would go out and paint the beautiful ranches and coastlines and
Or
cities.
the people they saw, the
people.
fishermen, or the people in the downtowns
Yeah.
and all the stuff, and the neon marquees.
And I think that's what ties, the art that we have. The reason that we're having, Tim's show coming in November. His art tells a story, each one,
and you're all telling it a different way. I have to talk a story. I can't draw a story.
Right.
I can't take my hands and turn it into something pottery or food or something here.
You can talk.
I can talk till you drop.
In multiple
but-
languages.
Multiple languages here.
Right.
But I can't create, and I can't use my hands to draw or to create something. And I'm
Right.
always frustrated by that.
But you see, the reason I don't, that reproductions will leave you not getting the whole story.
Right.
This painting was done on a very fine piece of what we call laid finish, handmade, very thin, delicate paper,
Right.
because it really says all our relationships are delicate. There's wax. I did parts of this with Buddha's votive candles.
Candles? Oh, wow.
I used a feather quill for parts of it. And so when you look at these decal edges of the paper and the delicacy of it, with this strong musician and his tie and the balance between everything, it becomes I've transformed a piece of paper, rags that have been
becomes more experiential.
and I've taken sticks with hair tied to them and colored mud and turned it into something
that's
what I
else.
like.
And
And
it
in our
really-
modern art world, that's what it's all about. He kills a pig and puts it in his oven and turns it into gourmet.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And a great museum,
Right. And
museum is going to tell that story of how you
Exactly.
did that.
Right.
Exactly.
So
or at least bring it out so that you go, oh, I didn't notice it. I didn't see
Yeah.
that. It was too subtle. Now I get it. I can experience it, and I can understand what they're trying to tell me, rather than that tastes good or that looks good.
In a very simple term, I get to make something in the quiet of my studio, maybe with a sitter there.
Right.
And he feeds me so I can stay alive, and she shows it to people, and combined, we.
Everything.
And I
that's
make
what
you
the-
talk about it.
it's the-
Oh,
That's
boy.
the culture of
It's-
Orange County.
Yeah, it's a full circle. And actually, Tim and I are always kind of arguing about you're a better cook than me.
I
and
never said
you're,
that,
You're,
but I
mean,
am.
You're a better painter than me. So yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then actually,
don't
I'm
say
very very proud also that Tim is start to paint my portraits.
Oh, he's bringing something out here.
But Tim is my portrait, and he.
Are we going to unveil it here today?
No, not today. Hopefully, maybe he will unveil it when he has his exhibit. I don't know if you still have a lot of space on the
Because
wall.
you've got something down there.
Oh, I got something there because, I'm not a great artist. I'm not a great painter.
Oh, you're a
But-
fine
but
painter.
Tim think I am. I have something.
You got something,
Like
okay.
I
No,
think,
no, you have
I
a
think
lot.
like he has something into cooking as well. And so we
You're
teach
painting
each
in different
What is
mediums.
that?
All right.
This is where I'm from.
That's what's hot.
This is where Monet loves. That's
Right.
Etretat,
Oui,
Oh,
oui.
I
Claude
forgot,
Monet
yeah.
painted this many times.
Right.
And then
Monet was from the same area you're from? I didn't
yes,
know that.
oh, totally. I'm from
Right.
Rouen. I used to paint actually.
I don't know where Rouen is even.
Rouen. Took my mother who loved painting to the studio across the cathedral where Monet did paint the cathedral from every hours of the day.
Wow.
And he has 12 paintings right
This is
there.
along the coast. This is Normandy or Brittany or something?
And, on the Seine River, between Paris and the coast.
Okay.
And so Claude Monet was there for several times.
Honfleur.
Honfleur, en
Oui.
Étretat.
Je pense que oui.
Same thing, he wanted a quiet area, so Normandy is very quiet. With all the
Looks pretty quiet there, those cliffs and everything you're painting there.
great poets who wrote,
Yeah.
musicians.
What is there about solitude and quiet that brings out the artist?
Well, because you just work with your mind.
head.
Mind,
Right.
your art and your mind.
You need to if you're really to do great things, you can't be distracted. And so you have, when you watch an outfielder in baseball run full speed into the wall, that's his office.
Yeah,
but he's watching that ball
Right.
to make sure he catches it. When you're really watching, I can't remember names, I can't remember anything. I'm fully committed to that painting. I mean, we talked about me drawing my way out of jail in Mexico.
Well, there's
That's
a
a
story.
story.
That's the story to come
That's
back
for
with.
next time.
That's the next time. Well,
Right,
and
but-
being on a movie set, I've been on movie sets many times. Very quiet. Very, quiet on the set.
Yeah.
When it comes time, there's chaos and noise and everything, but when it times to do it,
Well, that's
it's
it. When they shoot, they quiet.
quiet.
That's it.
I
No more
think-
war.
My best pal when I'm writing is my cat because he's very quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, when you play golf,
you
it's
and
same thing.
Hemingway.
You got to be quiet,
Yeah.
Concentrate on that little ball.
Well, we're the opposite. We want to be loud and talk about it. So, how do we find out about the Hilbert Museum? Where do we go for websites and all that kind of
so
stuff here?
the website for the Hilbert is hilbertmuseum.org. And we've got, if you want to reserve in advance, you can on the website. If you just want to walk in,
Like I did.
you're perfectly able to do that, and we register you right at the front desk.
And it's really cool stuff. You will recognize. I don't recognize those cliffs in Rouen or wherever we're talking about here, but I
Étretat.
recognize the people in the paintings
Yeah, you're
in
going
California.
to see California people. You're going to see California places. We've got a whole exhibit right now of Orange County places.
Right, but there's an exhibition right now of Millard Sheets,
Yes.
who was really a major national important artist, and I'm honored that I'm going to be in that same space. But when I was 25, you want to know how things? I put a piece in a show, and Millard Sheets said, "There's something about this work," and he gave it first place.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so he opened the door, and every time something good like that happens, there's somebody who says, "Oh, the Smithsonian bought it." I didn't need the Smithsonian. I knew I loved it, and I bought your work before. And so-
Exactly.
but Millard made it. So go there and look at the Millard Sheet
Oh,
show,
it's an amazing
and
show.
everybody else who's tagged on to that.
Curated by Jean Stern.
Right, John.
And what
Stern
does
was
he?
a-
What would I see if I saw? Describe what I would experience.
Well, he
I know. It's
very
hard-
much.
I know
the way
artists
I
hate putting it into words, but
But I
gotta,
can tell you, he grew up on a horse farm, and so his love of the mountains, the curve of a horse's neck is echoed in the curve of the mountains. There's a geometric harmony, man and nature fully dancing in harmony, and that influenced me. If you look at my landscapes, even the broom. The
witch's
mother-in-law.
broom.
No, it's a mother-in-law. And I got to tell you, my wife's mother was just the most lovely person. So I don't. I want.
You don't hold grudges against mother-in-law.
But against that one, I don't.
You did once show us that you see the background of one painting will repeat a little bit of the move of the horses in front of it.
Right.
And is it important to know that, or is it important to feel that?
Feel it.
That's what
But if you have to do it, you better do both. You better have to.
Sometimes you don't
need the whole.
Because I go to
Don't
find
realize.
food like chef will cook, and I'll say, I don't know what it is about this, but I can't even describe what it is. But this really hits me in a different level. There's a complexity to it. There's something going on here that affects me in a way I hadn't.
It's a
Before.
complexity, but also it's a perfect combination.
Well, that's the key.
It's an
Right.
alliance, of texture and shape.
You can't just pile paint on top of each other. You can't just
Right.
pile things on top of a bun.
Well, people can do that, and
Yeah, sure.
but that's a cook,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's not a chef.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, today we have 3 chefs with us today. Thank you for joining us. All right, and how do they find out, sir, about your stuff? Sounds like nobody needs to find out. They've already found out about
just
it.
Google Timothy J. Clark, and there's enough stuff will come up. And
Okay.
There's a Wikipedia page that
Wow.
no control on. I wish I could because, but there's links on there to
Yeah.
websites.
You'll see
It's
beautiful-
easier to just Google
You have a
it.
great
Beautiful
website.
paintings.
Timothy J. Clark
Kim and no E on the Clark.
with no E. That's somebody else. We're gonna have something.
Arthur Clarke,
take care of.
the sci-fi writer.
Right.
All right. Well, this is a rare opportunity to savor the stew of Orange County here,
Orange-
to taste it and simmer
Sure
it. And,
about. Yeah,
Right.
I like it.
Orange County's
Thank you
got
very
nothing
much.
to apologize
Thank
for.
you.
there we
ever
go.
so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for joining us. All
Thank
right.
you, Pascal. Thank
All right.
you.
Hang on
Thank you
here.
so much, Mary. Right.
Well, there you have it. Tune in for more as the Rad Life savors and sips and shows you all that makes up the life here in Orange County. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OC Talk Radio. Streaming live from our studios here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.